let's start this off with that. You've been playing obviously for a long time. You were a professional player. You've kind of shifted your gears into content creation over the years. You know a lot about top lane, a lot about the game. How do you deal with those downswings?
I feel like downswings don't really matter that much as long as you're happy in life. Because I feel like if I'm upset or something, then I'll get upset really fast in game or get frustrated and tilted. But as long as you're happy overall and in a good mindset, I don't really think it matters that much because you always know you're going to come back stronger. So I don't take it too hard. I don't think about it too much, and I just keep grinding. You know, it's not a big deal to me if it happens.
That's actually a pretty I really like that point. You're talking about like a balance in life. I think League is a game that you know how League snowballs. I think the emotional the lows snowball a lot harder if things that are happening IRL aren't squared away, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. And also if you don't work out, right? Like if you don't do any cardio or anything at all, then it also snowballs. There's a lot of like standard things you have to do. It's the same way you diet. You got to keep like somewhat decent, or else the same thing is going to happen. You're just going to tilt faster, play worse, and everything is going to feel worse.
Do you how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 27 now.
So you're 27. I'm 32, right? So we're a little bit on the older side relative to the player pool. How much do you feel age is affecting you right now in your game, if at all?
I don't think age is affecting me at all yet. I don't think it's going to affect people till they're like 34, 35, maybe 31. I don't know, something around that.
Yeah, I'm 32 and I don't feel anything. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I never play this game. I never play this game and have a moment where I misplay and think to myself like, oh man, if I was just 10 years younger. You know what I mean? I don't ever have that vibe.
I mean, I think the only thing that matters with this age is if you get injured in some way, like some people have hand problems and whatever, or back problems. In that case, it does matter, but if you're a healthy individual, it shouldn't really be a big deal at this time. And also, I think the player base is kind of old in League of Legends. I don't know if you're on the older side. I think we're pretty average, like maybe slightly older, but I think it's 24-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably pretty hard for newer players. Like, one of the biggest reasons that like my coaching stuff has done so well is I felt like there's been a lack of onboarding, right? And it's kind of funny that you say that, is talking about how it's like an older crowd. It's because I can never really get, I find it really hard to find, like most of my clients are older people, like older as in like 25 and older. I just recently had a client that was like 16. That like never happens. It's like super rare.
That's interesting, but it also depends on like the price and everything, right? Then you have to pay people generally 18 plus already, I think, or like there's a small barrier there. It's not even about the amount, it's just the fact that you have to pay for coaching, right? I think it's a small barrier. And then also one thing I noticed, I started doing TikTok recently with League of Legends videos, right? And there's a lot of people on TikTok, especially in Brazil.
Really?
Yeah.
So wait, I was actually thinking about incorporating that because we have so much coaching content through my channels and everything. I was thinking about trying it out. What's been your experiences with that? Is that...
So I started doing actual edited TikToks a week ago, and I don't have any followers, right? I have 80 on my TikTok because I don't use it.
Yeah.
My latest video yesterday started getting 100 views a minute. so it's at 50K right now, which is pretty good. Then you have 80 followers, right?
Yeah, dude, you might have a future in TikTok marketing. I might have to hit you up for some consulting because I'm serious. I swear, I literally last night I was messaging because I have 2 channels. I was messaging my editor for my second channel, and I was talking to him about like, hey, like, you know, I'm gonna start working on my Instagram a bit more and doing some lead content on that. And then I was like, we should also look into TikTok. So it's so funny that I have you today and you're like, yeah, I got a TikTok. Like I got a video that's doing well. What do you get like, now this is where I'm going to sound like a boomer, by the way, because like I have it on my phone, but I haven't used it like at all. So I'm sitting here like, do they like message you? Like, how does this work? Is there comments?
So there's comments and people can share it as well. I have no idea how it works. I don't even know how to share a video, but I know people can do it because I see people are doing that. I mean, it just seems to work. I got told by other people to start doing it as well, and a bunch of us started doing it, and I think all of us getting decent views.
Yeah, dude, I gotta get on that. I gotta get on that TikTok train, man. That's just crazy that there's so many social media platforms. I almost feel like as a content creator, it's like I'm always swimming like upstream, you know? Like every time I turn around, it's like, oh wait, your Twitter, like you need to post, and then it's like, oh, you got a YouTube, and you got a Instagram, and you got this and that, and Facebook, and all this stuff.
Okay, so it's pretty interesting actually. I think Twitter is a platform I probably use the most, right? But I think it's the most useless platform, and time spent everywhere else is probably better. Like even going for a walk would probably be more beneficial than spending any time on Twitter.
Why do you feel that way?
I just feel like the platform doesn't really do anything. Like you talk to people, you can communicate with people, but I feel like most of the conversations are useless or don't matter at all in the grand scheme of things. And it doesn't provide anything of value, right? Because it's just small text blocks that you don't even care about, and the people reading it don't really care about it either, right? Where on TikTok, it's much more entertainment focused. On YouTube, it's much more educational focused, like useful focused, and so is stream as well, right? So Twitter just feels useless.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder, you actually have, we're going to get into some league points too after we dive into this deeper, because you do have some interesting perspectives that I want to get at with like just general balance. But this Twitter topic is kind of funny. I would love to hear about someone on Twitter who's like making money, like real tangible income through Twitter, you know, because I have followers on Twitter. I've had like posts that have done okay. I've also seen people that post like the meme content on Twitter. I know you know because you're on Twitter all the time. And they post like meme content, and the meme content does really well. I plan on working with Chase Shaco eventually. I know Force Within's on there all the time. Solar Renekton only, he does great on YouTube. He has like really good like meme Twitter posts. But I don't know. I highly doubt they make anything on it. You know? Like...
But even then, right? Like they make the good meme Twitter posts and so on, but I don't think it translates into anything.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. I don't think it actually goes anywhere. It's just there, and then that's it.
It is kind of, you're making me think about my Twitter presence right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm sitting here like, he is right. Like I haven't made a dime on this. What the hell's the point?
no, but it's not even about the money, right? Like I give an example. I made a tweet the other day that had 550k impressions or something like that, right? Like. Quite good, 500,000, and I feel like these people will never go to my YouTube, will never go to my Twitch, will never even care about me. They don't care. They just care about clicking the like, and then they're like, next. And it's like, I don't know. I really hate Twitter, but I'm still addicted to Twitter. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous platform. I've seen you talk to LS a bunch on there, and I've seen you debating with people on there all the time. And and I mean, I can tell you right now, I find entertainment in reading you talking to people on Twitter, if for what it's worth, if it's any consolation.
Okay. So you find it entertaining, but when did you last visit my stream from Twitter?
From Twitter. You're right.
Because of Twitter.
You're right.
It just doesn't really do anything. It's just like it's useless impressions because people don't actually. I don't think people care about you because of Twitter. You know, you don't really bring value to the people in the same way as other platforms do. You just bring something that they can look at and be like, okay, and then go next.
Go next. I want to talk about a different good point that you've had. One that I think is very interesting. So for you, first, I want to shout out how good you are at the game still. You were one of the first original pro players, right? You've been playing for that long. And you're still pretty good. And to my knowledge, you've peaked Challenger this year already, right? I believe so.
Yeah, I hit Challenger not that long ago. Then I started playing Phil and playing every role, and I dropped down to Grandmaster. So, I see that you... Yeah, I see that you have really good results. And that's good results despite... Now, this is something that I think I personally relate to you on as a content creator, is that I feel like a lot of content creators have gotten a lot worse. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Like there was content creators in the beginning, or pro players even in the beginning, that if you try to get them in a game now, they just look like an absolute joke. What do you think is allowing you to kind of hang? Now, I know you've said it yourself, that, you know, you're not really, you don't think of yourself as a pro prospect, and that's not really your scene anymore. But you are capable of getting to a pretty high elo that a lot of previous players aren't. So what do you think it is about you in particular that's allowed you to kind of like buck the trend of just like the league player that just falls off, that has like no late game, right? I mean, the game changes all the time, but fundamentally it doesn't really change, right? So if you apply the same logic that got you in the first place, you should be able to keep up. I don't really think it's gotten much more difficult or anything like that. I think it's pretty much been the same. Some things have gotten easier, even, I would say. And then there's some things that have gotten more difficult, right? I would say League of Legends in the past was more mechanical intense because you had a lot more 1v1s and you had a lot more fights where you had to outplay people. But nowadays, it's much more thinking based where you have to be like, the jungler is going to do this, and then he's going to do that. He's going to be at my lane at 420. So if my lane state is bad, I have to be careful. It's a lot more thinking like that, but difficulty-wise, it's just slightly different. And if people are just brain AFK and going all in on the mechanics, they're probably going to have a much worse time right now.
Now, that's a perspective that I'm not sure if I completely agree, but I think I know where you're going with this. So you're saying that overall, because I think that I think that on average, players have gotten a ton better. Do you agree with that, or are you saying no?
On average, potentially, sure.
Yeah, because it feels like this.
Best, yes.
Yeah, because because I look at old stuff sometimes. I look at some old plays, and I'm just like, I personally think you're not giving yourself enough credit for how much you've grown from the beginning to now. But I see your point, especially like old school laning used to be about like the minions, this concept. How about this? Explain what you were saying. You made a whole post about how you would change League of Legends in a very similar vein to what I was saying with changing ranked to make ranked more, for lack of a better term, just more valid, right, than what it is now. But you made a whole thing. Yeah. You're
talking about like the 15 pages of game design?
Yeah.
Oh god. Okay, so basically
so I'm sorry. Key notes from that, right?
Yeah, of course. I'm not gonna read the whole thing.
Pull that novel out, dude.
So essentially it boils down to the fact that also what I just mentioned earlier, right? I think Riot have made it easier to play the game. Now, I'm not saying it's easier to buy ELO or anything like that, right? But in the past, you were often forced into situations where either you were going to die or they were going to die. And if you didn't take that fight, you were going to be behind. So you had to take a fight where it was about outplaying the opponents. There's famous faker clips from the past and other things like that that explains that, right? Nowadays, it's much more... Everyone have a lot of healing. Everyone is safe all the time. If you make a mistake, you just sit back for like half a minute and you're healing back up on lane. It's not as dangerous anymore. So mistakes aren't punished as deeply. And then also you have to play a lot more careful because junglers are way stronger, or supports, they're roaming a lot more. So you dying is mostly attributed to other places than your laning phase. So I think what they need to do is bring back more power to the individual lane, to the 1v1, make it harder to lane against an opponent by lowering your healing, increasing your health a little bit, so that damage doesn't kill you instantly, obviously, right? And then you're gonna lower the healing, so every time you take damage, it actually matters, and it's gonna punish you until your base. I think that is gonna have a massive impact on the skill, and then jungle obviously needs to be slightly weaker for that to work, but I think it would be a good thing.
So in regards to, because what's going to happen is I play, I'm like you, I try to keep up with all the roles as best I can. And one of the things I noticed with jungle in my experience is that there is, and first I want to find out if you agree with what I'm about to say. There are two major pain points in League of Legends. The most feel bad moments in League of Legends, I would argue feel bad moment number one, the thing that makes you just tilt the hardest out of all the roles, is when you play jungle and all your lanes lose. Do you agree with that, yes or no? All your lanes lose at the same time.
I don't know if it's the most, but I mean, you can't do anything and you're basically just a scapegoat for the team, and there's nothing you can do to avoid the situation because you're going to be screwed no matter what. Yes, that pretty much sucks.
So I'll give you the second one, and I think you're going to like this one because you originate from top lane. The second one is you play top lane, you get camped, and you get dove all game. You're the weak side guy, and you can't even play, like, you don't even get to play the game, and you just get dove. I would say that those in that order, and then there's a bunch of other like situations. Bot lane has like the bot lane meme, and mid has like their bad games or whatever. But like, I think those two things are probably the most painful things in League.
That's pretty funny because I actually think the second one is not painful at all, right?
Really?
If you're getting
Okay.
perma dove, I think the problem is you're not tracking the jungler well enough, not warning well enough, and not backing off in time. And yeah, I die a lot to this as well. Let's be real for a second.
I feel like everybody does, right? Yeah.
Yeah, everyone does, right? But at the end of the day, you have an out and you can't do something. I would say it's much more frustrating if that happens and the jungler isn't doing anything on the other side. But as long as you're getting benefit from the other side of the map, it's like, I should just have played better. I could have survived the dive. I could have backed off. I don't need these minions because they don't really matter that much anyways. And then I can just win the game by letting my team carry. I'm okay with that. I don't think it's that bad, actually.
It's like I need to lose as little as possible scenario is basically what you're saying. Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel that. The reason I bring this up though, in these concepts, is because I feel like top laners in particular, because I also come from originally like top Tryndamere was like my original climbs to like high elo. And one of the things I feel like a lot of top laners secretly despise the jungle role. Maybe not so secretly. Not so secretly, but like I feel like we know how they interact because we have to. And so when we see them playing badly, and this is like the Shen type of logic, right? It's like because you know what needs to be happening roughly in that role in order for you to operate, you wind up resenting jungle. You don't resent junglers, do you?
I need to think. So I don't think I resent junglers at all. I don't actually think I mind them too much anymore.
Okay.
Well, I don't like the balance for jungle because I think that's stupid, but I think that's on Riot, right? But nowadays when I play, I feel like my junglers are actually too nice often. So basically, the power levels used to be top lane is much better than jungle, right? So you want to get the goal in the top laner. So whenever the jungler comes up top, they generally give you the kill because you're going to carry harder. Nowadays, I think it's the opposite. And a lot of junglers don't take the kills. They're like leaving the kill up for you to take it. And I'm just like, just take it, bro. Just take it. And sometimes what I really hate is when the jungler does that and the guy survives or kills me because of it. I'm just like, why didn't you just take it? It's 100 times better than you. Like, what are you doing? I don't even need this kill. I don't even care about the kill. You just take it, bro. That's one thing that annoys me, but yeah. The reason I even brought it up was because you say that jungle needs adjustments. What do you think the role needs? Because personally, I feel like, I don't know if I would say the jungle role is weak. I don't think it's weak. I think it's strong.
It's strong, but I don't think it's strong in the way that, how do I phrase this? I don't think it's strong in the way that people normally view strong in League of Legends. I think it's strong in the sense that the jungler dictates what happens early, but I don't think that necessarily means that it's the role that feels the most impactful throughout an entire game. I don't know how to frame this without sounding like a goober.
I think it's the most impactful role, or at least the top 2 impactful role, but I don't think the jungler themselves gets all the strength, so they don't feel as strong, even though they have all the impact, right?
Yes.
I guess what you mean as well. I think the problem with the jungle is right now it feels like an adrenaline bunny just jumping from lane to lane to lane, trying to kill everybody on the map all the time, and they have to keep up with that. And I think it sucks, right? Because right now, if you get a kill on a jungler, it's not really a big deal. It's not like, wow, this is really fucking good. Because they're like, no, you should have gotten 5 kills. Why don't you have 5 kills already? And I would much rather have jungle being a situation where if you get a kill on a lane, it have a massive impact, and that lane actually changes completely. Now that lane is going to be a big difference, and your laner is going to dominate. But right now, if I die top lane, I'm just like, I don't really care that much. It doesn't matter much to me. The only thing I care about is the fact that I've made the enemy jungler fed, which really sucks because now he's gonna destroy my jungler, right? So I feel like laners don't snowball hard enough, and junglers are too strong, and junglers can perma gank. I'd much rather have a game where junglers couldn't gank as often, but when they actually ganked and it worked, it was much more impactful.
And you think it would be that way if the solo lanes could have more agency, is what you're trying to say?
I think it would be that way if it was harder to lane, for example, by having less healing, right? Like nowadays you buy a Dawn Shield or something and you sit back for a minute and then you're back to half health or full health if you're really low, right? So it's really easy to sustain. And you have Second, you have cookies, you have a million things that gives you healing.
Yeah, that is something that it's almost like a big balance question mark, because you wonder then how the hell you would play into some of these lanes. They would have to do so many passes over just like the range top interactions now and all these different nuances in these solo lanes because I feel like the reason they even do all these sustain items and these sustain runes and options is because they almost don't know how to balance it out. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you just dump a bunch of sustain up there, like, you know that anybody, if he's just willing to give away enough farm, he can survive a game of solo queue realistically, right? Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, so I think the problem is Riot is trying to make it easier for themselves to balance the game, which is why the more you increase healing, the easier it is to balance, because less impact for every single action, right? So it also makes each matchup more balanced, because now if you lose a matchup, you don't lose it as hard anymore, right? So Riot have done a lot to artificially make it easier to balance the game. And I also think they've done a lot to artificially change the game time, so it's always the same time. Like, if you look at the past, right, games used to be over in 10 to 15 minutes, like actually ending Nexus in 10 minutes in a real game, because top lane snowballed out of control or mid lane snowballed out of control, right? Nowadays, that never happens. It only ends that early if people surrender, basically, give up and open the base.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. It's definitely a lot slower. Like, it feels like the games tend to drag quite a bit, and it also feels like when you're losing, it's like a very like slow and like reliable death. Like, I don't really think they did some like anti-snowball changes, but I think it's like mental state or something. It doesn't really feel like anytime that there's a lead, it feels very hopeless right now in League.
I mean, they did a lot of anti-snowball, but I think the problem is it's very hard to end the game before minute 20. But then they also made a lot of things that made you end the game in minute 30 no matter what, almost, right? Like maybe 35, whatever. But they have heralds now, they have barons that are super strong, the super minions. In the past, games went from like 10 minutes all the way up to 90 minutes sometimes. Which I don't think you've seen a 90-minute game or even a 70-minute game in any recent times.
No. And you're not even just talking solo queue, are you? You're talking pro play as well.
Everything. And it's not about the skill level, it's just about how they balance the game. And I think that's an okay balance. I have no problem with that. But I think it's very important that they also focus on the fun aspect and not just how to make it easier to keep everything balanced. Like, I wouldn't even mind if League was less balanced than this right now.
That's a different take. Let's dive into that a little bit more. What would you do to make the game less balanced?
So as we talked about earlier, right, if they remove all the healing and so on, or not all of it, but like if they lower it a lot, which they're already doing. If you look at Renekton nerfs, right, they nerf Renekton for a long time, they're nerfing a bunch of healing here and there, and they're nerfing mobility. If they nerf those things, then you're gonna end up in a situation where it is going to be harder to balance, because it's much harder to sustain bad situations, and it's much harder to get out of a bad situation, where now you can just wait around and you will automatically get out of that situation.
I think about when you're talking about less balance, there's one situation that comes to mind in my head right now, and that's the jungle passes as of late, where we've just kind of been almost plugging in random junglers into the role. Do you enjoy seeing that? Because I do.
Do I enjoy seeing that? I don't know if I really care about seeing that. I don't think it matters. I think it's artificially increasing how many people play jungle. I don't think it's going to increase, champions playing jungle. I don't think it'll increase how many players actually play the role. I don't really think it changes anything. I think Morgana and Rumble were terrible additions because they're too easy to play, same with Yuria. I think things like Kha'Zix and so on is really, really good because it's very hard to play and it applies a lot more skill to the game. And if you take Rumble, like I can play Rumble with my blindfolded. It's really easy. You do the route, you gank, you base, you do your next route, then you gank, you base. Like, it's very, very simple. And then if you see an opportunity to invade, you invade, right? With the Kha'Zix, I feel like there's a lot more options for small invades, small little fights here. Maybe you take a risk for ganking to try and snowball, but if it fails, you get hurt really badly. But I feel like on Rumble, you never really need to take those chances.
Yeah, there's a lot of... It's almost like you are the... It's kind of funny. Because in a lot of my coachings with the players that I wind up coaching, because I get a lot of low elo players, it's almost like you're advocating for the antithesis of what I coach, which I can understand, because to you and I, the game has a lot more, there's a lot more skill expression for players like us. We've kind of figured out the game, so we could take advantage of these champions. Like, as of right now, I'm just playing NIDALEE and climbing with subs, for example. Like, NIDALEE's a champion that most people, when they play, you just like roll your eyes. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ, right? Like, this guy's playing NIDALEE, like, I don't want to see this right now. But for you, or basically for me in coaching clients, I wind up telling them a lot like, okay, play Mundo, play Nocturne, play Garen, play Hecarim, Udyr, and stuff like that. And yeah, well, it's like at the same time, like I could see your point, because it does limit the game a lot. But at the end of the day, you know, how do we get to a point where these champions, like, do these types of champions, do you just believe they should never exist? Should there never be a Garen able to pass, like, you know, Diamond 1? Because that's kind of what you're advocating for, right? Like when you think about
it. I don't have the problem with the champion necessarily.
Okay.
I have the problem of how few weaknesses the champion have in the jungle. For example, let's take Rumble, right? He's full health all the time. He clears extremely fast. It's almost impossible to shut him down, and he's a god of 1v1ing. Now, how can you shut him down? If the jungler 1v1s him, probably doesn't matter, right? You're not going to get in that time. You're going to be behind. You're just going to fail it, most likely. If a laner goes in to try and gank him because they're stumping the lane, well, Rumble's full health, he goes overheat, he kills you. You can't do anything to him. And if you end up fighting him, he uses smite and heals on a camp anyways. Trust me, I've died to this a lot of times, so I tried it. So it just feels like he doesn't have enough weaknesses, right? And a lot of that comes into healing again, because junglers have so much healing. Often, I love invading. I invade as often as I can, right? And one thing that screws me over a lot is I invaded the enemy jungler on the red blue buff or blue buff, and then I'm fighting them. They use the smite on the buff, and suddenly they get 30% more health or whatever it is. And I'm like, shit, now I'm screwed. I can't do anything anymore. I need to run, but I obviously can't run, and I just die. Yeah,
that happened to me today on stream. That exact scenario actually happened to me on stream. I was invading with NITLE. I think I caught... I like visualizing it in my head. I caught somebody on red. They had 10% HP, and my brain went, surely I win this, right? Like, surely.
Yeah, of course.
And I hit the spear. I go to jump. He smites... Or no, he flashed over the wall to golems, smites, full HP. I don't even have a chance. Like, even if I hit another rotation, you know what I mean? Like, even if I follow it up perfectly, like, I lose. And that's a hard thing. That's like a hard pill to swallow. It's like, wait, am I just not allowed to, you know, to go for this anymore? Like, is this a misplay for even thinking about it? And I think the answer here is yes, it actually is a misplay.
Yeah, it's a misplay, right? But the thing is, you should be able to make proactive plays, right? And junglers should be in a state where they have a weakness. Right now, I feel like if a jungler gets ahead, you can't shut him down. That's why jungler is so overpowered right now, because nobody can shut him down. A laner goes in to try and kill him on a camp. Well, he's full health all the time in the jungle. When are you going to kill him? And if you actually get in there, well, you're going to lose 1v1 most likely. And even if you don't lose that 1v1, then you're lucky son of a bitch, because like that's 1 out of 10 scenarios at this point, right? And then if the jungler's behind, he's going to get stumped by the enemy jungler. The laner's going to invade him all the time. He's going to have a bad time. Everything he does pretty much is going to be awful. And the enemy jungler will clean faster than him at all times. You just keep getting ahead. So I feel like there needs to be more weakness in the jungle where laners can actually stop a guy who's ahead as well. That's also really important.
Yeah, there's definitely... It's funny because I was using the NITLE example, and it definitely feels like in my test that if I get 2 or 3 kills, the game, I'm just going to run it over, you know? And there's really not much from a gameplay perspective. Like, okay, I get Dark Seal, I get a few kills, I throw spears, I go back, I buy Zhonya's. It's going to be pretty hard to shut down for the other team.
I mean, I think it's almost impossible to shut down. The only thing people can do is just try and get further ahead on lanes and just ignore you, right? Like, basically, survive against jungle, keep scaling, get your items, and just ignore the jungler for now, because we can't shut the jungler down, so there's no point really trying to shut it down. We should just avoid the person getting further ahead.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think in those cases, it does become an issue of like, it's not so much that you come up with anything proactive to do. It's more or less that you're just waiting for them to be like myself and just limit test too much, right? It's just, you just like limit test too much, and then you punt over like 1k gold.
Them, right?
Yeah, that's true too, right? Especially if you're talking about stuff like, I see you play a lot of Jax. I see you played a lot of those bruiser types of champions that get really good value as the game drags on.
Yeah, just like you play NITLE, as you mentioned, right? So NITLE scaling is pretty terrible most of the time. So the AD carry is going to outscale you. So once you get free items, AD carry is like, I don't really care that NITLE is 8-1 because my AD carry is 2-0.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, pretty much, right?
She's 2-0. She's 2-0. She could buy a stopwatch and survive. Yeah. It's like, At this point, we don't really do that much. I would say, in my opinion, when I look at League right now, I still enjoy. You must still enjoy the game, though, right? You play it a lot.
Yeah, I enjoy the game.
This isn't because for me, you know, people that are listening to you right now, they might assume that you're saying that you're generally like unhappy with the game, and I don't think that would be true. I think it would be more of like you just want to see it even better, right? Is what you really want to see.
I mean, pretty much. Like for me, I always feel like things can be better. It's the same with YouTube videos. Anything I do, I'm like, this is not good enough. This could be better. And then I look at statistics, and I'm like, the stats are really good. But they would be even higher if the YouTube video was better and if it brought more value to the people watching, right? So it doesn't really matter how good something is because there's always something you can do that is better than it.
Yeah. Definitely a pursuit of perfection, even if perfection's probably not ever possible. Do you think with League, there's so many games lately that Riot's trying to churn out lately. Do you think that League has become this thing that Riot, I don't want to say that they're giving up on necessarily, but it does almost feel like there hasn't been any crazy what's the word that I'm looking for, progressions with how the game goes. Like, I haven't really been getting too excited about League of Legends changes as of late. I haven't seen any changes down the pipeline that have made me go, oh man, this is awesome. And the last time I felt that way was probably when they talked about the items, but I find the items to be kind of disappointing overall.
So I think the problem is, I don't think they're giving up on League, and from what I know, League is still growing. So I don't actually think League is in a bad state at all.
Okay.
I think the problem is League code is really old, and I think improving League is much more difficult. So when you take a game like Valorant, right? Improving Valorant, new code, new everything, they already knew exactly what they wanted to build. It's extremely easy for them. They just go out and pump out the content, right? But the League of Legends is much more difficult to actually improve from where they are right now. So I think that's the reason it takes so long for them.
I see. So you think it's more of a code thing?
Yeah, it's a code thing, and then it's also a pro play thing, right? Because they can't really make major changes during the entire year, pretty much. So they only have one opportunity, and if they mess that up, well, next year you get another chance, right? So all the changes that I'm asking for example, in this entire document, they can't actually do any of these changes right now, because if they did some of them, they'd screw over the game until they did a lot of them, right? Because everything is tied together. So it's very hard to get right, and it needs a massive patch, which will never happen before the end of the year.
What do you think about these, speaking of big changes, what do you think about these movement speed passes that are being, I mean, I generally don't like to go too deep into changes with these casts because I fear that like they'll become very dated very quickly, but there's obviously been a lot of move speed in the game. We're in like, you know, patch 11 point whatever the hell it is, right? And we've got move speed changes. A lot of items are being cut down on move speed. Now, I find it interesting because you were focused on health specifically. You were talking about how, you know, I wish that we could reduce some of this health regen or some of these ways to get health back. Do you feel that similarly about move speed or no?
So I think I mentioned that in the document as well. I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure it's in there somewhere. Yeah. But I think movement speed is a problem. And I actually think movement speed, including plants and everything else, like basically how fast you can move on the map, right? Especially jumping plants. Those hinder how well split pushing works, right? Because right now, if you're split pushing, you have about 10 seconds to a split push where the enemy can move from mid to top. So you don't really have much time. If you go for the second tower, you'll almost always get caught if the enemy team have the pressure. So it's very, very difficult to do, and it's almost never worth going for second towers, in my opinion. It's better to just push in, take enemy golems, or take the raptors, go mid maybe, get a fight going, catch somebody. And that's really sad right now. Now, Riot's obviously introducing a split push item, and I think it's the wrong way to go about it, but we'll see what happens, because I think a lot of people are talking about it, but nobody really knows, including myself.
Yeah, there's a new item that's coming down the pipeline. Did you see this? This goofy, yeah, this new item.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Okay.
I think everyone is talking about how it's going to change the game, how it's terrible, how it's great, but I don't really think anyone knows. Like for me, I can assume somewhat what it does, but I don't actually know if it's going to be good or bad, because it's different from ban off command, right? It's not the same.
Yeah, so just an item. This item, for those who aren't tracking, it's basically got a ton of health, and it allows you to do bonus damage to, and it's got some AD. It allows you to do bonus damage to towers if you're left alone. Very similar to Sanguine Blade, which was attack speed when left alone. This is literally just going to give you some health, some AD, and allow you to do more damage to towers. From a baseline gold efficiency standpoint, it's looking pretty broken. But again, like Wicked's saying here, you know, split pushing isn't really a thing that you do. When I play like Tryndamere, I don't queue up anymore thinking, man, I can't wait to take their towers, right? Like my game plan, if I play that champion, is more about getting ahead, taking a bunch of camps, and then shoving in so that I can flank is mostly where I lean, or I guess maybe dive and then take a Baron to end the game. But it's pretty hard to actually end the game through like an actual split push. And for you, Wicked, you probably, when's the last time you've seen a game ended through somebody just like breaking down the Nexus on a split push?
I don't even remember, to be honest. Like for me, I probably split push 1 out of 20 games, and that's about it. Like I don't actually ever try and split push almost, because I just feel like the value is very low. Obviously there are those key situations where you should be split pushing and it's beneficial, but there's 2 problems. In solo queue, your team is likely to get caught, and the second problem is it's just not worth it most of the time. Yeah,
because it feels like the game isn't, it just doesn't allow you the opportunity to do it. Even if you take runes that are like designed to split push, like if you take like Demolish, you never like sneak in a quick tower. Like that just never happens. Like the timer is just too short to really like get anything done.
But I also think even the items right now, the strength you gain as a top laner by split pushing, the item power spikes you get, they don't matter enough, right? So if you have 3 items, and enemy top lane have 2 items, it's not like that's going to completely change the team fight around. It might have a small impact, but if the AD carry have an item advantage, that's a massive difference. So you don't even care about all the gold you get in that split push, because it doesn't really carry the game. You'd much rather get a team fight going where you can feed up your AD carry.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense too. And it goes back to what you're saying initially about how, like, you know, you'd like to see more agency in the top lane. I do think it's a high elo exclusive problem though. And I think this is where people are going to get hung up on you, because you've obviously played at a high level for so long that your complaints and criticisms about League of Legends are going to be different than the average player. Because like right now, I'll tell you right now, I was just playing with a guy for duos for a day. And every single loss that I experience in low elo almost always is through a Garen, a Jax, a fucking Mordekaiser, a Fiora. You're laughing. You're laughing because you know it's true. Because in low elo it gets weird, right? Because what you're describing is in high elo, like, how hard is it to actually solo kill, like straight solo kill somebody in top lane in high elo, would you say? How often do you get a pure solo kill in high elo?
In lane or?
Just in lane, just like a straight up like lane phase solo kill.
Probably 1 out of 3 games or 1 out of 4 games, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty rare, right? Yeah.
No, I don't think it's that rare. I just think the benefits from it is not that big. But I don't think it's that rare that you get the solo kill.
Well, yeah, okay. Let me rephrase. That's a good point. Let me rephrase. So in like low elo, let's say we get a solo kill. Generally, you're going to be able to solo kill somebody so hard, right? Like you're going to be able to squash them so hard that if the jungle gank shows up after, well, because normally if you solo kill somebody in high elo, generally you're going to be so low and you're going to be like, ah, shit, like I got to push this. I gotta push this lane in, and like I don't have a window to do it. So it's like, even though I got the kill, I might get myself in a lot of trouble, or vice versa, right? Yeah. So but in low elo, you might just kill a guy at level 1 for no reason, and then he comes back to lane and dies again. So I think the problem that Riot faces in implementing the changes that you want is that they always balance. Like look at the Nasus nerfs. Do you think Nasus ever deserves to be nerfed from last patch?
So I think yes, right? Because I don't care about Nasus. Nasus is a champion that's completely irrelevant to me. I think he's actually somewhat useful sometimes in high elo even.
But you think he deserved a nerf? I think the key is this, right?
Yeah. Nasus is a champ that doesn't matter in high elo. Nobody cares about Nasus.
True.
So the idea is that having champions that are used a lot in low elo is very, very good for the game, I think. And nerfing them exclusively for low elo is also completely fine.
Okay.
Because it doesn't affect us, right? I don't care if people play Nasus. It shouldn't matter for us.
Well, that's the reason I even bring it up, is because in order to implement the changes that you're after, I think it's going to create scenarios where low elo players feel really bad. Like, they're going to feel really shitty because they already feel shitty about champions that no human should really be that concerned about. Like you said, like anybody that's good at the game knows, like in the back of their mind, like if you get beat by a Nasus in a higher elo game, you know either you really screwed up or your jungler really screwed up. Like someone screwed up really hard. So I feel like when you start talking about things like reducing health or maybe making the lane phase a little bit more skill expressive, you get in this scenario where you've got a lot of angry Jerrys, right? The low elo Jerrys.
I disagree though. I disagree.
Okay.
So this is my opinion on it, right?
Okay.
I think a lot of people feel really, really shitty, as you say, but they're gonna feel shitty at themselves and they're gonna think, you know what, I could have done better. I will do better. And on the other side, the other guy will feel really fucking
wait. I have to stop you right there. Did you say that the League of Legends community might be capable of self-reflection?
So the League of Legends community is definitely capable of self-reflection, but while doing it, they're gonna be blaming somebody else. But they can still self-reflect while blaming someone or blaming someone else. You can do both at the same time.
Yeah, I think you're giving a lot of random Jerrys a lot of credit, my man.
I mean, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, you know, who knows? But I think it's possible. I've seen this, right? This is an example. Okay. I've seen somebody flame somebody else while knowing 100% he was at wrong, right? He was the one who made the fall, but he still flamed somebody else. And then I talked to him afterwards. He's like, yeah, I knew it was my bad, but I didn't want to admit it was my bad, but I still knew it. So at the same time, he can do both, you know, it's possible. And I think that most people actually do that. You
think a lot of people do that? I think the people that like buy coaching do that. I think the people that I think honestly, the majority of the player base, I don't think it's the majority that's that way, but I think that it only needs to be about 10 to 15% of the player base that never accepts fault for it to feel really bad too, you know? And I think that if you're yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a difference between never publicly accepting fault, like never doing it to other people, and then deep inside and knowing what you actually feel, right? There's a massive difference there. Like sometimes I have bot laners flaming me top lane, right? While there's 0-10, and I'm just like, guys, you guys are permadying, like, come on, man. You know?
Yeah.
But they obviously know that they're messing up all the time, and they know it's their fault that they're losing the game. So I think that's okay. I don't really think it matters too much if they admit it publicly. I don't think it changes anything.
Oh man, well, we are pretty much at time. We are pretty much at time. Thanks again for doing this, dude. We got to talk again sometime. This was great,
bro. It's fun.
Yeah, this is good. We could have some definitely some good conversations, more conversations about lane matchups and newbies being newbies and people, because like what you just said with that, I literally had a client yesterday who was that 16-year-old kid, and he was he was trying to time summoners and he was using F keys. And I told him, dude, like, I think it's great that you're using F keys and that's probably a cool thing to keep, but this timing summoners thing, because he was like struggling to like farm because he was like timing the summoners, and I was just like, yeah, we may want to drop the summoner timing.
What elo was he, if I may ask?
He was like silver or something.
Yeah, honestly, I think if you're silver, timing summoners is okay for yourself, but for your team, like, let's be honest, dude. Even in high elo, half of them don't read what you write.
Yeah,
so
you write it.
In silver, nobody reads it. Like, I'm sorry, but like, you put in all that effort, and then people is like, what's a summoner spell?
Yeah, what is a timer? Like, what? Why is this guy writing fucking numbers? That's what they're thinking. Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly, in high elo, it's amazing. I love them as support types, all the summoner spells from every single player. Yeah. And you just have it in text. They use the control A to control C to copy it, and then just control V it and spam it all the time, right? I love it because I know what to use it for. But I feel like even if people do that, a lot of people just don't care. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. Man. Well, geez, this was a fun talk, my dude. Thanks for doing this. I'm gonna try to hit you back up for another one probably in like a few months. Maybe we'll try to run it back. Sure. And yeah, man, just keep killing it. Obviously we'll promote all your stuff on the YouTube video, Twitch, and anything that you post in the Discord. We'll put it in there. And yeah, man, like I said, I respect your game. I wouldn't have brought you on here if I didn't think that, because like I said, for a lot of content creators that
have been playing for a while, not many of them have maintained that level of play. So keep it up, dude, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, bro, and see you later. It was fun. Peace, bro.
All right, man. Later. Have a good one.